You ever get that sinking feeling when you finally click buy on a cheap-looking router, only to discover a week later that the Wi-Fi drops every time a coworker walks by, or the LTE fallback never actually kicks in? It's the kind of buyer's remorse that makes you wonder if you should have just saved the money and stuck with your old hotspot. That's why I'm starting today with a little reality check. Does the Cradlepoint E3000 with its 5G modem and a year of NetCloud Enterprise actually feel like a smarter investment, or is it just another pricey promise that leaves you with a notebook full of what-ifs? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last couple of weeks digging through the specs, watching a few tech review videos, and reading what the handful of owners who left ratings are saying. Mostly, they're not thrilled. The average rating sits at a modest 2.2 out of 5, based on 3 reviews, which already tells you this isn't a runaway success story. Still, the E3000 is marketed as a branch router for small to medium businesses that need reliable 5G connectivity, plus a built-in Wi-Fi network for on-site devices. Let's unpack what that actually looks like when you unbox it and try to get it working in a real office or a mobile workshop. First off, the hardware is exactly what you'd expect from a device that's meant to be the network hub of a satellite office. The chassis is a solid, matte black box about the size of a small external hard drive. It's got a set of Ethernet ports 1, 3 LAN plus an external antenna connector for the 5G panel. The Wi-Fi antennas are internal, which saves a bit of space but also means you can't reposition them for better coverage. Plugging in the power cable is straightforward, and the device boots up in roughly 30 seconds. From a setup perspective, Cradlepoint pushes you to use their NetCloud Enterprise portal, which is where the 1-year plan in the title comes into play. The portal is web-based, and you'll need to create an account before you can even begin provisioning the router. If you're a business owner who's never touched a network appliance before, the portal can feel a little intimidating. It's full of tabs like policy, VPN, firmware, and analytics. The good news is most of those sections have tooltips and step-by-step wizards, but you'll still spend a good hour just getting the basics right, setting the 1 to 5G, configuring the fallback LTE profile, and defining the Wi-Fi SSID and password. For anyone who's comfortable with a Cisco or Ubiquiti device, it's a familiar landscape. For the rest of us, it can be a steep learning curve. Now, the real test is what happens when you actually put the router to work. I set up the E3000 in a small co-working space that has a patch of 5G coverage next to the window, but the signal fluctuates throughout the day. The router does what it promises. When the 5G radio drops below a certain threshold, it automatically switches to LTE, keeping the internet alive. In practice, the handoff isn't seamless. I noticed a brief, 35-second lag each time the router toggles, which caused a momentary hiccup for a video conference. If you're running a call center with strict latency requirements, that could be a deal breaker. On the Wi-Fi side, the device supports both 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz bands, and the performance is decent for a handful of laptops and a couple of smartphones. In my test, I could sustain about 70 megabits per second on the 5 GHz band when the 5G signal was strong. That's enough for typical office tasks: email, cloud document editing, and even HD streaming, but it's nowhere near the gigabit speeds you might see on a wired fiber line. The built-in Wi-Fi also lacks advanced traffic shaping that some enterprise-grade routers provide, so if you have bandwidth-hungry applications like large file uploads or multiple simultaneous video streams, you'll feel the bottleneck. One of the practical strengths of the E3000 is the remote management capability. Through NetCloud Enterprise, you can monitor signal strength, data usage, and even push firmware updates without ever stepping foot in the remote office. That's a huge time saver for managed service providers who need to keep dozens of sites online. The portal also offers basic security policies like blocking rogue devices or enforcing a password change every 90 days, so you get a baseline of protection without buying separate firewalls. The downsides, however, are more pronounced. The first is cost. Even though the box itself isn't cheap, you're effectively paying for a year of NetCloud Enterprise access that is bundled into the purchase price. If you later decide you don't need the cloud management console, you're still stuck with that expense because the router's firmware won't run in a standalone mode. Secondly, the customer feedback though sparse points to occasional firmware bugs that cause the router to reboot unexpectedly, especially when the LTE fallback engages. In the 3 reviews that exist, 2 of them complained about the device disappearing from the